And good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone had a great weekend. And welcome to the works. We are back and we are moving forward and pushing. We're getting the word out about expertise from people from all walks of life. We are giving you information that you need to know that you may not know of, or pretty much anything goes when it comes to this podcast. And so we had talked about anything and everything. And so this is of no exception. So with me this evening here is Bracha Goetz, and that's Goetz. And you pronounce it as if the O does not exist. Okay, she's a Harvard graduate, written over 40 children's books, have a memoir on overcoming food addictions. And the greatest thing about her works is that she makes life deepest concerns clear. So I have my little introduction here. Uh, please let the audience know, who are you?
Oh, thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. Beautiful. I'm uh I'm just a person that loves to share how to be more joyful in life. That's really what I'm doing now. And of course, when I help other souls to shine, it helps my soul to shine too. So it's kind of selfish, but I mean, it's just like we're all here to help each other. Yeah.
So I want you to go, a little deeper, into those last couple of sentences, that you have, and then we will talk about some of the children's books that you have written in, and talk about your memoirs that you've written, and then I want you to expound on the phrase that you mentioned, makes life deepest concerns clear. So we're
Yes.
going to go in that order.
Okay, beautiful. I was searching for the meaning to life, and my book, my memoir, Searching for God in the Garbage, is about all the garbage that I was searching through, looking for the meaning to life. And it's basically what I finally found is something so amazing. It's from ancient mystical wisdom that there's 5 levels to the pleasure ladder. And I just realized last week that these 5 levels, of course, they have to do with our hand, the 5 fingers on our hand, because it's empowering. We can grab these pleasures any minute of our life. They're available to us every minute. So why do we have addictions? We feel there's a scarcity of pleasure. So we can't get enough. We just keep overeating, for instance, trying to get the pleasure that we experience to keep lasting. We just want it to keep lasting, so we way overdo it, But what we really want is lasting pleasure. So when we recognize that there's an abundance of pleasure available to us every moment within our grasp, then we don't have to, then we can toss those addictions away. We don't feel so desperate. We don't feel like there's such a scarcity. I don't have enough pleasure in my life. We can feel more calmly. There's an abundance of pleasure and I can access it on my own. So I'm going to hold up a chart even. The lowest level of pleasure are all the physical, sensual pleasures, the pleasures we can enjoy with our senses, all the, like an orange, all the natural foods, being in nature, music, dancing, moving, all these pleasures. And moving up to the next level up is love. Now, love It's an empowering definition. It's not waiting for someone to come into your life. It's you focusing on the virtues of another. Even in prison, a person could focus on what a kind grandmother once did for them, and they will be filled with a warm emotional feeling of love. So we can bring love into our lives at any moment, even when we're by ourselves, by focusing on what we appreciate about others. Moving up is doing something meaningful and positive, something good in the world. That fills us with an even greater pleasure than the physical pleasures or love. Doing something meaningful. Higher than that is creativity, putting a unique part of ourselves into the world, making a podcast. That's doing something really creative. When we are being creative, we don't feel like eating or sleeping. We are in a zone that brings us so much pleasure. And the highest level of all is called transcendence. It's when we transcend our limitations. We do something new. We make a tiny crack in a bad habit. We transcend the limitations between us. We see how we're all connected, and how we're all connected to source, the same source energy. And like we've experienced it under a starry, starry sky, when we all know we're part of the same universe. So there is an abundance, an infinite amount of ways to bring pleasure into our lives at any moment. That's what changed my life, finding out this ancient mystical wisdom.
This ancient mystical wisdom that that you discovered. Do you mind telling us what that is
That
and
is,
how it affects your life?
yes, that is. I mean, it's based from the Kabbalah, but it's universal. These 5 levels of pleasure correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. So it's something we all fill up spiritually and physically. The lowest level of pleasure uplifts our, it's the part of the soul that's connected to our bodies. So when we experience these sensual pleasures, it uplifts us physically and spiritually. How? There's only one price to pay in order to climb each rung on that pleasure ladder, and that price is gratitude. When we experience gratitude, that's how we experience all these pleasures and let it into our lives. I'll give you an example with an orange, just one little orange. Before it's ripe, it's green, just like the leaves on the trees, it's camouflaged in. And when it becomes ripe, it turns bright orange. It's calling to us. I'm ready. I'm ready. So then we experience the joy of the color. We can smell how beautiful it is. We can touch it. We can peel it. And the peel keeps in the juiciness for months. Inside of that are the seeds of eternity. These seeds, when we plant them, it can become a tree. And then it becomes an infinite amount of oranges just replenishing itself. It's amazing. So this little orange is packed with infinite intelligence and loving kindness for us, to bring us loving kindness. These are all the pleasures in life that we overlook. So in my children's books, this is what I'm giving children from the very beginning of life, to focus on all the wonders of nature and the joys of being healthy and living a healthy life. Yeah. Are you there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still here. I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay,
Go
great.
ahead.
Yeah, so that's it. So it's all about opening our eyes to see that this world is filled with pleasures, and we don't have to stuff our faces with the entire ice cream or the whole box of chocolate chip cookies. There are so many pleasures available to us every moment. Like there's a show called My 600-Pound Life, and they say that the only thing that was bringing them pleasure anymore was food. So the way to get over that is bring on more pleasures. Identify what brings you more pleasure than eating and just fill your life up.
Yeah, have you seen this? I mean, there used to be another show called My Strange Addiction.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
seen that
I
one?
never saw that. But
Yeah, I
addiction,
mean,
yeah, addictions are very strange, and we do them in secret when no one's looking. Like my behaviors were really bizarre when I had this addiction. Yes.
so in your memoirs, overcoming food addiction. So, without getting any spoilers, so what are some of the things that you talk about in this memoir?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Go ahead.
is it like a personal memoir, or is it like generally speaking?
Yes. It's really personal, and I write really short books for children. So this book, it's I didn't exactly write it. I compiled it from diary entries and journal entries and letters. And then I filled in the missing pieces so that you can actually watch me developing the food addictions and then overcoming them. It goes from age 12 to 32, where you see the whole process happening like a case study like that. And even though it's my personal story, it applies to anybody that's searching for more meaning in life, or that has found any type of addiction and would like to overcome it.
So, what were some of the ways that you have overcome your uh, addiction to food?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I just realized what I came to learn was that when we feel this emptiness inside, the more desperate we feel, we try to fill it with externalities, but it's never going to help because it's not a physical hunger. When we're overeating, it's not because we're physically hungry, it's that we're spiritually starving. Our soul is genuinely hungry for pleasure. So these are all the ways that we can uplift our soul. And then we feel full. Like ever since this time that I began to learn about my roots and this wisdom, I've never been running on empty again. It was never that desperate hunger anymore, because now I have a general sense of trust in the world, that it's a good place and that we're ultimately all here for a good purpose. That this has changed everything, so that it's not a world of chaos to me anymore. The world turned gray when I was in the world of my addiction. And what I say is a beautiful quote that I learned is, an addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. You get everything back when you give up your addiction, which is really like being in a prison.
That is very unique. I never really thought about it, that way. There's so many, like different parts of me, and I'm giving all of that just, for one thing. But that one thing that I'm addicted to should not define.
Exactly.
Is everything else that I have given up, that defines me. So is that how it works?
Exactly. And addictions start to take up your life. A person knows when they have an addiction because their life becomes unmanageable, basically. It takes up your energy, it takes up your mind, it takes up your everything, and little by little it's all gone. And the joy gets drained from life. So it brings this immediate comfort, but it doesn't bring us the great pleasure that we've been seeking. And this is how to really get the pleasures from all the natural joys in life. This is how we can really find lasting pleasure through
Uh,
gratitude. Yeah.
so when you talk about pleasure, are you talking about earthly pleasure, or are you talking about spiritual pleasure?
Yeah. So the lowest level of pleasure are all the earthly pleasures, but they uplift our soul as well when we experience them with gratitude. When you enjoy this apple or this orange with gratitude, then it's not just a physical nourishment, it's also nourishing your hungry soul.
Um, Talk a little bit about some of the church's books that you have written. I understand you have written 40 of them.
Yeah. So the newest one is Let's Stay Healthy. Somebody contacted me during the pandemic, like begging me, my children need to be eating healthier and they need to know why exercise is important, So my background is in science and public health, and I love explaining to children why. The 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 junk food is designed to be delicious and addictive, while the natural foods are designed to be delicious and nutritious. They're totally different. The junk food is designed from greed, and the healthy foods, they're designed with loving kindness and with wisdom, with infinite wisdom to help us. So I explain all this and how our bodies were designed to move and sleep. Even teenagers that read the book, they say, oh, now I get it. If I sleep, then I'll have energy and I'll be happier the next day. They experience it. So yeah. And I have a book about swimming safely. So important, especially for really little children. It's so important. One of my books is about Let's Appreciate Everyone. It's about disabilities, how to interact with children that are neurodiverse, children with disabilities. So usually children stare when they see a child with a disability. So there's another 5-letter word that also begins with S, and that's smile. If you add your smile, it's okay to stare because you're curious. If you add your smile, then you can create a bond between you and the other child. So let's say you meet a child in a wheelchair. So sit down next to them. So you're both on the same level. Let's say you meet a child who's blind. So say your name. And when you're going away, say, okay, I'm going now. Let's say you meet a child who's deaf. So speak slowly so they could read your lips. And you could draw them a picture. You can write them a note. And let's say you meet a child who has an invisible disability. They're sitting on the side while everybody else is playing. So invite them to join you. And they may not want to, but they'll still feel good that you asked them. It helps their soul to shine, and it helps your soul to shine when you invite them. So children love getting guidelines about how to interact. I have books also about prevention of abuse, and the children love it. It makes them feel safe to have guidelines in life. Yeah. Those are some of the books. I can tell you about more if you want to. Yeah.
Yeah, but before you continue with that, the first book that you mentioned about, eating healthy. Now, growing up, I used to have an addiction to sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to love, any type of sweet there, is to a certain extent, like cakes, cookies, pies,
Yes.
and all sorts of, stuff. And I would eat all of those things, and I never seemed to gain any weight.
Oh, wow. Yeah. When you were young.
So right, so I was this tall, person, maybe about 6 feet, but I was like 142 pounds,
Right.
and I ate like a horse,
Right.
and people was like, well, why are you eating so much, but yet you're not gaining any weight, you
Right.
know, so, so at that time, I never thought that, I said to myself, well, I probably won't end up on a show where I'll be weighing 600 pounds.
Right.
But nevertheless, I was eating a lot of, I was eating a lot of sweets. But
Right.
somehow, over time, that craving become little to none, existent. I don't eat a whole lot of sweets as much as I,
Wow.
used to. I eat a piece of cake every now and then,
Yes.
or maybe a cookie or something like that. But
Wow.
for the most part, I don't, and I don't know what happened.
That's great.
I had no idea what happened. What made me decide not to, eat sweets anymore.
Right.
And I can go to a grocery store, and be surrounded by, yummy sweet baked goods, cakes, cookies, pies, and it doesn't send out a trigger.
Wonderful. That's
It,
that's a
I
big
mean,
blessing. That's a
I,
huge blessing.
I mean, it just it's kind of, it's kind of weird. And I know I say, to myself, well, can't eat any of that stuff. It's not good for you. Even to the point like, drinking sodas. I don't drink a lot of sodas as I used to. You know,
Fabulous.
it's mostly, water. I don't eat a lot of bread.
So good. That is great.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, with that chart you just showed me, I'm wondering if I'm going on, that particular, path as far as, trying to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Because that's an ongoing, process. I don't think we're going to master it. Um, I don't think we're going to master it in a short amount of time. I think it's going to be a lifelong process.
Yes.
But every day we move closer to, per se kicking the habit, overcoming, that addiction. And I think that it doesn't necessarily apply to food. It can apply to, anything like,
Exactly.
gambling.
Exactly.
Or you have some people that are addicted to shopping,
Yes.
and you have some people that are addicted to sex.
Exactly. Exactly. It applies to every addiction, totally. With food, it's like really obvious, but it applies to every addiction. This is how we could fill our lives up with real joy. Exactly. Lasting pleasure.
So is it like when you try to, do other things in the place of, that habit? Because me, for example, I do a lot. I wear a lot of hats. I'm an activist. I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
Uh, I'm a certified counseling practitioner. I'm a minister, and
Yep.
so I have so, much to do. I have a
Exactly.
whole lot to do that, it practically like consumes, my day to the point that, I'm not sitting at home all day,
Yes.
and I have a house full of food, and, I decide, that I'm going to eat my own self out of house and home.
Yes, you are filling yourself up on every rung of this pleasure ladder every day. That's exactly what it sounds like. That's why you don't have that addiction, because you're getting pleasure on every level. Transcendence as a minister, creativity in your all your different work that you do, meaning you're doing so many meaningful things, you're appreciating other people, and you're enjoying the healthy foods. You're actually fulfilling this pleasure ladder exactly with gratitude every day. You're the living example of how to do this. Exactly.
Oh, great. I mean, I didn't know that. So I know there's this the Maslow's Maslow's ladder hierarchy.
That's
You know,
right.
you have that. And I think that what you have presented, is something similar to what he has done. So, are
It's
you sure are you sure you're not Maslow
right.
reincarnated?
No, that's the hierarchy from Maslow. But this goes way back, way farther in time back than Maslow, because he probably adopted it from this, This is much more ancient than Maslow. And Maslow has to do with making sure you have basic safety levels before you can go up for higher levels of meaning. So it's not exactly the same type of thing, but it's similar in the sense of this is a roadmap of how to have pleasure in life, how to experience joy. And again, it's the basis of it all is gratitude. That's how to experience joy on every level, increasing the gratitude in our life. Because any moment that we're experiencing gratitude, we're not miserable. Yeah. It's really that simple in a way. Yes.
So I mean, exercise, regularly.
Right.
I will walk a mile, back and forth, to my office.
So great.
So it's in the same community. I get an opportunity, to walk a mile, back and forth. So I do like 2 miles a day, like 5 days a week.
Beautiful. And
And
yeah, and I just want to say that even that you're doing your podcast from outside, you love
mhm,
being out in nature. I mean, you're a person that seems to really love life. Yes. I'm sorry I interrupted
uh,
you.
oh no, 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 no. I mean, no, no, no. That needs to come out, because I don't think people, realize that, you have podcasts, and they're always in their traditional, setting. Eventually, I will be in a traditional, setting, but every now and then, and I have some TV shows, they like, well, we're on location, blah 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 blah. They get away from the studio, and then they go to a different place, and and they're really like cheerful and lively,
Yes.
and so are the guests, and the show has a little bit more meaning and a little bit more pleasure, and you have more people watch it. Like take the Today Show, for example. On Fridays they used to have the summer concert series, and
Yes.
that's when the hosts, they get outside, they let their hair down, and everything goes.
Yes. Yes.
And so it makes them really like enjoy their work. I
Beautiful.
enjoy what I so I enjoy what I do because I enjoy, not only being around people, but to also to not only to make a difference per se, that too, but also give the audience an opportunity to meet different people
Right.
who don't necessarily have the same philosophy or the same expertise, as somebody else, does.
Exactly.
So this is a general interest podcast. And so that's what it is. It's general in nature. Anything goes. I tell people all the time, if you have a story or expertise, you want to share your story, this is the place. This is the
Beautiful.
place to be. And sometimes we are in a traditional like studio setting, and sometimes we are, we're outside. We're outside, with nature. And then sometimes we're, you know, in an area that's different from where the studio is actually, located. So it's kind of a okay. Yeah, sorry about that. And and I know I asked you to go back and talk about some of the other children's books, that you have written. So we're going to get back to get back to that. I mean, you said some things that really, caught my attention. So I just kind of wanted to elaborate and expound on that from my personal experience.
Great. Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah. One book is I Want to Be Famous. This, like so many children want to be famous. So this boy becomes famous overnight the way anybody could now with a YouTube video. Someone takes a YouTube video of him doing something ridiculous and he's famous and he's loving it. He's having a blast. And then somebody else could do it better. And then he's not famous anymore and he's miserable. So then he realizes, wait a minute, if I can shine the spotlight from inside me, then every day can be awesome. Like, I don't have to wait for a spotlight out there. That's called the soul. Get your soul shining. Everybody's got a uniquely beautiful soul to shine. So it's what it's
so in
about.
other
So
words,
many,
you can create your own spotlight. So
what
in
was
other words, you can create your own spotlight.
exactly, it's an inner light. Get your inner light shining. And then every day will be awesome. You don't have to be dependent on anybody else. So that's a message that I'm teaching. And I've got Where is God, about finding it in nature, finding God everywhere. And Hashem's candy store is about how amazing our fruits and vegetables are. They're so incredible. Like if you slice a carrot, what do you see inside that slice? You see an eye. You see the shape of an eye, because carrots are so good for our eyes. A walnut, if you take a walnut, you look at it, it looks like a tiny brain. And walnuts are so good for our brains. A tomato is so good for our hearts, celery for our bones. So much of the things, they look like what they're good for. It's like fascinating when you start learning about nature. That's what I'm explaining in this book. Like, what a wonderful world we live in. So what one more book I'll tell you about is The Invisible Book. So there's so many things we believe in that are invisible. There's gravity, we just drop the book and it goes down. There's an invisible force. There's all our thoughts and feelings. They're all invisible. Time, it's invisible. We see the effects of these things, but we never see them. Same thing with us. We are invisible spiritual beings. that's what I didn't know when I was a child, because I wasn't given that spiritual wisdom. So that's what I love to give to children right from the very beginning, so they don't have to play catch up the rest of their lives, and they have the tools to have a joyful life from early on in life.
What was your inspiration behind the books that you have read? So what is the inspiration comes from?
The inspiration comes from that I want to write the kind of books that I wished I had as a child, because I was searching for spiritual wisdom, and I think that was the cause of my addiction. And if a person can have that spiritual understanding right from early on in life, then they don't have to suffer with things like addictions. Yeah.
Did you mention in the broadcast, what that addiction was and how you overcame it? Did I ask that question already?
Well, for me, it was food addictions. But like you were saying, all addictions come from having a starving soul. And we need spiritual nourishment in order to get over those addictions. Yeah.
So when you was going through this addiction to food, you said it was as a child or as an adult?
Um, it, it was mainly in my teenage years into my early 20s.
So do you feel at that time that you was kind of like missing something? Was there's a part of your life that was missing, or something in your life was missing?
Exactly. And I didn't know what it was. It was like, what is missing? Where's that missing puzzle piece? Until I found it, it was a constant feeling. That's what the hunger was about, a genuine hunger. But I didn't know what I needed. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but I was looking, right? Like
And would you
desperately
say,
searching. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What?
and would you say that you have found it?
Yeah. I'm never running on empty anymore, because I found what brings joy in life, and I trust the world now. I feel that there's a good purpose to everything that happens to us eventually, and that we all have an inner goodness. These are all things I didn't know. And the world turned gray to me for years. And then all the colors came back. And now it's a beautiful world again, because I'm not taking it for granted anymore. Now I really appreciate this life with gratitude.
So you kind of hit on some things that pretty much was a central theme. It was this 1998 movie called Pleasantville. Like it started out. I don't know if you've seen that before. It stars Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon.
I'm going to write it down. I don't know about it, but I want to find out about it. Yeah.
Yeah, Pleasantville.
Uh-huh.
So it starts out in black and white, and everybody was living in this pleasant world where,
Uh,
and then all of a sudden you had these two kids that was from the 90s that were transferred to the 50s, and they kind of like you know we may call upset, or upset their world,
right,
per
right,
se. And so when their world started turning color, it means that they're experiencing new things. They're no longer in their shell. They're finding new meanings and new pleasures, in their lives. And then you had this other side, where, they was still black and white, and they was fighting against, this change that the kids from the 90s knew that it was going to be inevitable.
right,
And also, too, another thing that I found out is that all these black and white shows, from the 50s and 60s,
right.
some of the stuff that, that went on in those TV shows were not real to a certain extent.
Hmm.
That that there was some level of innocence,
Right,
but it wasn't like it was in those black and white TV shows. That's something that I ran across with, because at that time we was dealing with Jim Crow,
right,
and there was a lots of racism that was going on
right,
at that particular time, and then you had the civil rights movement. So things did not appear as so, and really TV shows back then in the 50s and 60s, they really didn't deal with those things, because
right,
again they had that Pleasantville
right,
mentality.
right,
Like, if I'm exposed to these new and different things, then I'm going to become a different person. So
right.
so when you mentioned that, I had to bring that out, because I think there's some similarities as well as some differences, into that. But I do want you to uh watch that movie,
Yeah.
if you can.
Yes.
Because I think it touched on some things that you have mentioned, already.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
So going back to the Q&A here, if I haven't mentioned it already, what brought you out of your addiction, and how does this book, help other people? As I know, when we all go through something, we may think that, we're alone in this thing, and
Right,
I'm the only one that's, going through that. So can you kind of elaborate on that for a little bit?
right. I think it's a universal thing. We are genuinely hungry, and we have to recognize that. So when you've eaten a meal and then you feel like I'm just going to keep going, or I'm going to finish this whole container of ice cream and things like that, it's not, you'll never be full physically. It's not a physical hunger. It's that it's that we have a need to bring more lasting pleasure into our lives. We want the pleasure to keep lasting. So bring in more lasting pleasures. In other words, and it's all within reach. Add more gratitude to your life. Be more grateful for everything you already have. Appreciate that you're breathing. Appreciate all the illnesses you don't have right now, all your body parts that are working. Appreciate, turn on some music, start stretching and dancing, open the window, feel the breeze, feel the sunshine. Just experience gratitude in that moment, because it's not that you need the whole box of chocolate chip cookies. That's not going to bring the pleasure.
But
Um, yeah,
what if, like, if someone is like, going through a lot of emotional turmoil, or they're dealing with mental anguish, um, you know, they're constantly worried about the world around them, or someone may say that I don't feel safe, or I don't have a safe space to where I can be me.
yes, exactly. So when we, like, every moment that we spend in gratitude, we're not spending feeling anxious or lonely. It fills up our lives. Now, in addition to nourishing our hungry souls, a person may need therapeutic intervention as well, because our natural state is to want connection. Our souls want connection. Each level up the pleasure ladder adds more connection. Um, So when we are in the state of feeling miserable, we feel alienated, alone, we feel estrangement, anxiety. When we add more connection, that takes away, it fills up the empty space. That's what we want. But if a person has been through trauma in their life, especially in their early life, then they need therapeutic intervention as well as the connection, because they've put on layers of protection on top of their resilient soul. These layers of protection stop a person from connecting as much. So you may need therapeutic intervention if you've been through trauma in order to let your soul shine. Then you need two things. You need to nourish your hungry soul, and you need to get therapeutic intervention to help you remove all these protective layers that are blocking your soul from shining. And it's also stopping the light from getting in to warm your soul up also.
So, would you consider, mental illness, for example, to be darkness that's blocking the light, as you mentioned?
Yes, and addictions can be a form of mental illness, when it's taking up everything in your life, you don't have much of your mind space left to enjoy life. That's one form of mental illness as well. So um, when you're suffering, get therapeutic intervention, get good intervention to help you. In addition, nourish your hungry soul with gratitude. Fill your life up with moments of gratitude. Every moment is one moment that you're not being miserable. Each moment counts.
I'm curious to know what was your major. I'm curious to know what was your major was when you went to Harvard.
Yeah, my major was psychology and I was pre-med. And after I graduated, I went to medical school to become a psychiatrist. So that's the direction that I was headed in.
Uh, so did you did you finish, or you decide to do something else?
Right. I left medical school after 1 year. By that point, oh, I was suffering terribly, looking like successful on the outside, but suffering so much inwardly. But that week, I had a 6-week break between my first and second year of medical school. I went to Israel that summer. And instead of coming back 6 weeks later, I came back 10 years later. So I went on a very different course in my life. I went on a spiritual path and I really learned about my roots, the heritage that had been lost. And I was able to fill my life with the wisdom that I was seeking.
So a lot of the books that you have, showing me so far, has a psychological, base to it. So it looks like that when you went to Harvard and you majored in psychology, it's your major's kind of rubbing off on some of your books.
Absolutely. And also my love of public health. I love that. And I love psychology. And what was missing, the missing piece was the spirituality. So that's what got added in. Yeah.
So besides, writing books, what else do you do?
For just about 20 years, I was directing a Big Brother, Big Sister program, helping to mentor children that needed support. Oh, and then
Oh,
of course
cool. Uh,
I I I raised 6 children and now they're all wonderful parents. Yeah.
are you kind of like an empty nester now?
Yeah, we are in a very sweet empty nest right now. Yes, but we have a lot of grandchildren and children that we spend time with. Yeah.
So it's just really wonderful for me to, meet very interesting people that has unique stories to tell. And I think that's what makes this podcast, unique. I know I got some questions about, are your shows kind of like, political? I said, well, not necessarily. I mean, we deal in all sorts of things.
Yes. And
Because
it's great.
I think that we have to, and I think we have to get away from, I know there are shows out there, podcasts out there that, specifically talk about, that one or two things, which is okay. I mean, that's their preference. Uh, but I think for, this podcast is that we're looking for people that, that have storytell or, they may have expertise, but they might get overlooked. Even some of their podcasts that, have grown to a gazillion, viewers, or listeners, but they're not going to take the time, for, someone that may not necessarily be, popular in society, to be on that particular, podcast. So I have a problem with that. I believe everyone has a story, and
That
everyone's story is unique. And there needs to be have we have about 5 more minutes here, and so how can someone find you if they want to get more information from you, or they want to purchase a book, or if another podcaster finds you and they want you to be on their podcast. So how people can reach you?
the best way, my children made a website. It's called getzbookshop.com. So it's GOETZ, getzbookshop.com. And my children will be so happy if you use their website and find me and my books and everything. And that's the best way to reach me. So I love when people give feedback. And I tell people you don't have to buy my books. It's good for children to have my books so they can read them and keep reading them. But you can also get your public library to get the books. You don't have to own them. And it still gets the messages out into the world that we're all spiritual beings, we're all connected to each other. So you could just simply ask your public library to get the books, and they're happy to do that. So that's good too.
Are you on social media? She on social media?
Yeah, I'm on every place, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those places.
Okay. Real quick, can you share how can people you on social media?
Sure. Yeah, they can find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Yeah, you name it. I'm all over the place like that. Yeah.
Is there like any advice or words of encouragement that you would like to give to the audience?
Yeah. Jeff Bezos, when you think big, you think Amazon. And he had this quote: everything I've ever done in life started small. So that is the most important thing to think about. Just be grateful for one orange. Just focus on gratitude for one breath of life. Just open your eyes and look at the beautiful tree that's near you and just fill your life with little bits of gratitude. That's how you create big gratitude. Exercise your gratitude muscles every day. Yeah.
The four levels of pleasure that has shown to us, are they expound on any of your books?
I do. I mention it in my memoir, but people keep telling me I got to write a book just about the 5 levels, so that might be coming up.
I think that's a I think that's a really I think that's a really good idea, because I think people will want to know in great detail
Oh,
uh about that.
and there is a book already. That's why I don't feel such a need, because the rabbi that taught it to me, he wrote a book about the 5 levels of pleasure. If you Google it, you can find it. So he has done that. He's no longer alive, but he wrote it years ago. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I think you may have a different spin,
Right. That's true.
on that. So I mean, that's just something to really think about. I think everybody has a different revelation, of everything,
So
but
true. That's
but
right.
but the message, is the same. It may be worded differently. It may,
Yes.
we may have a different interpretation,
Yes.
but the message is the same. So I really encourage you to, I really encourage you to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for encouraging everybody to share their stories and making everybody feel valuable that way. Thank you.
No problem. So we have like a couple of more, minutes left. If there's anything that you would like to share with us before we close.
There's a story I love about a man that was on the top of a building ready to jump off. And a woman across the way, she says, "Don't jump. I'm sure your life is very painful. But what if you were blind your whole life and now now you got vision. Now you suddenly got vision. Would you still want to jump?" And he said, "No, of course not." So she said to him, "You have been blind your whole life. You have so many blessings in your life right now, even though your life is very painful. Open your eyes and look at all those blessings." That's the message I want to leave everybody with. Everybody, anybody listening right now has so many blessings in their life. Just experience that gratitude, rejoice. And there's we're all in this beautiful garden together. And we're not here to see through each other. We're here to see each other through. Yeah.
Well, it was certainly a wonderful pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. A real pleasure to be with you too. Thank you
Thank you
so much.
so, thank you. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Next weekend, we will not have a broadcast because of Independence Day. So we pretty much going to shut down for Independence Day next weekend. So we will be back on the 9th with another exciting guest. So I hope that you will tune in. Now, keep in mind, as always, we pre-record everything and we put it on all of our social media platforms: YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so many other platforms. And so we're trying to reach the madness with different people with all sorts of testimonies and stories and expertise, um, that really going to bring people out from all walks of life. And so that's what this podcast is all about. And people like you make this podcast the way it is, because we bring flavor, we bring variety. And that's what this show is all about. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into the works. Join us 2 weeks from this evening, where we'll have another exciting guest. And I hope that you tune in. Until then, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.